The European Union provided financial support to South Africa in the establishment of a vaccine plant in Cape Town. The technologically driven plant conducts research, design, and manufacturing of vaccines. The challenges around the dwindling demand for vaccines were also discussed.
Somebody will still have to buy these vaccines, and we know that we need to then also, as a way of making sure that it is solid, to decide and work very closely as to how and who do we really engage to ensure that we don't have this capacity which will then be choked because they manufacture vaccines and nobody buys them. And this is really part of the very interesting discussions that we are having.
The European Union and the Health Department say they are working to strengthen their collaboration to prepare for future health crises.
Because global crisis can only be approached if we work globally. And with our pharmaceutical strategy for Europe, working with our European Medicines Agency, we want to promote access to safe and effective medicines and medical products to all citizens globally. And we need to do this. We need to work together to ensure that all people have access to essential medicines they need worldwide. And we can only do this if we work together.
Besides COVID, in the country we give immunizations to children at birth. And 90% of immunizations in the country are imports, not manufacture. So the starting point is to, even if there were not to be COVID, and even if there were not to be any future pandemics, we need it for the whole of Africa, for our own resource. Measles must have a vaccine. We are actually immunizing against rubella. We are immunizing against TB.
Clinical trials for the vaccine are planned for September this year.
We have developed an mRNA vaccine in partnership with Wits University here. That vaccine, Afrivac 2121, named after the date 21st June 2021 when Dr. Tedros and President Ramaphosa and partners announced the creation of this program. Afrivac was developed in South Africa with Wits University, and in this facility now is produced for animal studies and for human studies later this year. This is the test case for us to demonstrate to the world that we can do mRNA vaccines.
Experts say the vaccine is already in the preclinical development stage. Athule Joga, SABC News, Cape Town.
And we're joined now by the Deputy Health Minister, Dr. Sibongiseni Dhlomo, to speak a little bit more about this. Dr. Dhlomo, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. As we were watching visuals of you touring the facilities, as we also mentioned in the beginning that you were taking your European Commission counterparts there. Just speak to us about the importance of, the African context, manufacturing of a vaccine in Africa for Africans.
Thank you very much, Tepiso. You will recall, Tepiso, that as a country, South Africa, and as a continent, Africa, we were put at the back of the queue to access vaccine against COVID. Now, there's been so many issues raised worldwide, the morality issue and the whole host of why should the whole continent be at the back burner of this issue. So this has propelled the establishment. You would recall our president was a chairperson of the AU. At the time he left that responsibility, in its wisdom, the AU asked our President Ramaphosa, to be the champion for COVID-19 in Africa. Now, not only is he remaining a champion of COVID, he would then be a broader champion because we will need more and new vaccines for any other emerging pandemics. We continue needing vaccines, immunizations for all these infectious diseases we have, whether measles, TB, chickenpox. So we would want to say, to decrease the vulnerability of South Africa, of the continent, we too must have these hubs where vaccines can be manufactured and really assist Africa in particular, and then the rest of the world.
I mean, it was quite shocking to learn that, particularly as you talk about vaccine inequity during COVID-19, to learn that Africa imports 99% of vaccines. So obviously, this is a positive development. But as you mentioned, it's not just for COVID-19, but for other unprecedented diseases. What are we talking about here?
Marcus, it's a piece of you probably would not have been aware that we have the animal health in our country. Horses, cows, cattle, every immunization, vaccines for that animal health. We import, we don't manufacture in our country. So it's not only to take care of your measles, TB, and all that, and any other future pandemics on human life. It also has to assist us. It has to assist us on animal life, which we need for our own economic development, not just South Africa, for the whole of the continent. So it's a very huge initiative that is being done in Afrigen, in Cape Town, and in Gqeberha, everywhere else. We would not to be saying, can Africa be on its own feet in terms of accessing these very important health products, both for animals and also for human life?
Dr. Dhlomo, it's been noted that part of the reason for the situation that we're in has been chronic underinvestment in research and development, but poor knowledge transfer is also cited for this position we find ourselves in. And I'm just wondering, how much more progress can be made, given the fact that at the WTO, the whole issue of the TRIPS waiver with regards to vaccine production was something that was not as successful as we would have hoped for. Some said there was some gain, but I'm just wondering, how do we push this to ensure that there is knowledge transfer, particularly from the Western countries who are the ones who dominate in vaccine production?
On that side, so let's start by saying, do we or do we not have capacity in the country? We have the best of our scientists in the country, and Professor Tulio Olivero and many others have actually been taken up with the best research component. Even our MRC is the hub of the best of brains. So that part we have, but of course we would like to get support elsewhere from the international community. Number two, we already have got support that has come in. EU visitors, among other things, they were coming in to indicate their availability, support financially, and bringing the expertise. A few months back, we were in Cape Town. The president was actually welcoming the WHO DG, Dr. Tedros, to come in and actually, because we have been picked up as one of those hubs in the world that can actually do this vaccine manufacturing. So there are areas of pockets of excellence in our country. We just need to accelerate that and move on. And therefore say you are correct that India and South Africa have been in the forefront of these waiver processes. And maybe that I would probably leave to our team, because we as health are going to really become a beneficiary to the products being manufactured. It's our Department of Science and Innovation in the country that is leading on these processes. And also our economic cluster ministers are pushing very hard on these economic issues and these economic processes that the world is really beginning not to move on them. But there's already strong support and pressure that they must really handle these waivers in a favorable way for developing countries like South Africa.
Just in terms of commodity supply chain, and I know this is somewhat a bit technical, but I would like to understand this, Dr. Dhlomo. I believe that there's very limited upstream production of antigen formulations. So do we have the capacity for some of these things, or is this also something that we're going to have to depend on, just in terms of sponsorship, cooperation from our northern neighbors?
You are correct, Tsepi, so this is quite technical. For me, I don't want to start featuring saying things that I really have not been well versed on, but all I can actually say for now is that the expertise that we don't have, there's a lot of that support coming from the World Health Organization and from other scientists in the world. There has already been a commitment to support and get our hubs in Africa, in South Africa, being the centers of excellences. But those finer details I may not be able to really give you exactly.
Okay, so there's also the issue of competition in a subsidized market. Now that we're starting out to ensure that we are producing our own vaccines, what about investment from within the country? The health department, what role are you going to play in mobilizing for that?
We would actually play a very critical supportive role to start with in Africa, to say, by the way, at your doorstep in Gqeberha, in Cape Town, we are now able to produce this type of vaccine. And we feel we are well strategically positioned, as our president is a champion of vaccine on behalf of AU. So that message going out into Africa will start by saying, you don't have to really struggle too much. We do have it here in Africa. So that message probably is well placed within our leadership because they are actually in that space. But again, even internationally, there are other provinces, there are other continents that are probably, because there are continents that will just manufacture and hoard for themselves. So we are creating that morality story and creating that awareness even amongst other continents, even as far as in the Asian countries, because they too do not have all the resources to deal with these issues. So I think that movement is carried very strongly by our political leadership in our country.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us, Deputy Health Minister Dr. Sibongiseni Dhlomo, on South Africa's manufacturing of a vaccine.